Hello Gemini, and welcome to my channel Tarot by Gabrielle. This is going to be a general reading for Sun, Moon, Rising, and Venus placements, looking at your recent past, your current energy, and your immediate future, answering the question, what do you need to know right now in order to move forward in alignment with your higher self? Friendly reminder that these are general readings and they are not here to resonate fully for everyone, and they won't resonate fully for everyone. So do please remember to take what does resonate and helps your personal situation and to leave what does not. Last thing is that any information on the extended reading or on booking a personal reading or coaching session with me is in the description box below. All right, Gemini, we're going to jump on in. We're looking at overall energy through oracle cards first, and this is my intuitive life coaching deck, which I am obsessed with. And then we'll dive into the story with, further into the story with tarot as we progress. So let's start with looking at what you guys have been dealing with in your recent past. This is for Gemini's recent past, please. The journey. You are learning that every challenge you face has a hidden gift inside. You've been on a journey, very challenging one. Very challenging, seemingly never-ending one, okay? Let's see what else we've got here. These cards are so hard to shuffle. There are so many of them, which I love, but they also stick together. Okay, environment, awakening, the journey of awakening, which explains why it's been difficult. And then environment, now is a good time to clear, clean, and declutter your environment. And that's, I feel like, the journey that you've been on. This is definitely a journey to awakening to maybe your spiritual side, like a literal spiritual awakening, or just awakening to certain truths, realizations, seeing things in a different light. And because of this awakening, I feel like it's pushed you to clearing out certain things in your environment, relationships, jobs, habits, things of that nature. And I don't necessarily feel like it's been easy by any means, but I do feel like, yeah, because this awakening, you are no longer letting people dictate and run your life for you. I didn't read that. And it kind of, maybe it's like awakening to your power in some sense. And I think that, awakening to our power a lot of times starts with feeling pretty freaking powerless. And it's almost like we give our power away to people, to jobs, to things outside of our control until we are so drained that we have no choice but to take our power back. And I think that that's what leads a lot of people to a deeper awakening of realizations of like certain things that aren't serving them, is kind of just getting fed up with the way that things are. And so maybe that's what happened here in this recent past. What is Gemini dealing with in their current energy? Healing with nature, connection. So you are very connected to the heavenly realms, and it says your soul yearns to be outside in nature, around the healing waters, flowers, and trees. I actually see this in a different way. Let me see. Oh, and then you have mirror. Everything that is happening in your external life is a reflection of your inner world. So here's what's really interesting. Is I feel like you are connecting deeper to things that you've been disconnected from for a really long time. Maybe your power, maybe your confidence, your sense of self, your desires even. And I feel like in that, there's been this feeling of almost maybe feeling a little bit lost. I think that an awakening, when we go through an awakening or we have a realization, a lot of illusions kind of come crashing down, and we build a lot of our life around illusions until those illusions, shatter. But the illusion of like, oh, this relationship is everything that I want, but then like you're not getting treated the way that you want, and it doesn't align with what you really deserve. And then once that illusion kind of starts to come crumbling down, it's like, well, what do I really want? We start to see things in a different light because we start to realize that what we once wanted doesn't really align with who we are. It aligned with what we thought we needed, and it's almost like you're connecting to these parts of yourself in a way that you never really have before. And it can be really scary because then you kind of go, okay, I'm not who I thought I was, and I don't really want the things that I thought I wanted. So like, who am I and where am I going and what's happening? I feel like that's kind of the energy that you're in right now. This energy of everything feeling really up in the air, feeling really lost. And it's something that it's actually a really powerful time because it's kind of like gaining this clean slate. And it's like, okay, these things didn't really align. Now, what do I want? What do I want to do with my life? Where do I go from here, kind of thing. And again, it's scary because there's so much unknown associated. But it's almost like the Healing with Nature card to me is about kind of reconnecting with your true nature. And, I think a lot of times, we disconnect from our true nature out of survival. And we have jobs and careers and relationships that we feel we're supposed to have or that we need to have or that we need out of survival. But then it doesn't actually align with like who we really are and what we really want. And it's like, we forget that like our needs matter and our desires matter, and we're here to do more than just survive. We are here to thrive, but a lot of fear comes with that too, because a lot of the like constructs of what you've done to survive, to make money, or to have a stable home or whatever, these things start to kind of not make as much sense, because it's like, well, to have this relationship, I'm having to sacrifice my needs and desires, or like to have this job, I'm having to sacrifice my happiness. And you start to realize like what really matters, which is joy and, fulfillment and peace, and things that a lot of times we put on the back burner for survival. So this is pretty deep. I feel like you're going through some pretty big transformations here, Gemini. What does Gemini need to know moving forward? Automatic negative thoughts. You are learning to take charge of the thoughts you choose to give life to. Interesting. Shifting perspective. That's a lot of what I feel like you're dealing with. And then universal mind, you are about to receive the solution to your problem or concern. And then career transition. So maybe this is changing careers, or changing paths in some way. And it's interesting because I feel like you have so much negative, like the thought of change brings up a lot of negative thoughts. Like, well, I'm not going to have the money that I need, or how am I going to survive if I'm not doing this job that I hate, or even if it's outside of that. Could be with relationships too. I'm not going to say this is specifically about career because this is a general reading, but I do feel like it's shifting paths in some sort of way. And this to me is about aligning further with you, what you're here to do, with your purpose, maybe even discovering your purpose in some way. And I think that there's a need to kind of step outside of the ego mind, because the ego mind is going to cling to what it's always known. It's going to cling to survival. It's going to cling to the constructs that we just kind of discussed. Your soul is guiding you to more though. So there's a need to kind of step outside of the comfort zone of like being willing to do things differently than you ever really have. And in that, energy is where you find some solutions here. So I really like this. I like where this is headed. I feel like you guys are in a really cool period right now. This transition period is always really like fun from the outside looking in, and when you get to the other side of it, but when you're in the middle of it, it's just like, oh my gosh, like what is happening? Where am I going? How are things going to turn out? Because those unknowns, right, they're scary and they're overwhelming, but the unknown is where we find some of the most amazing gifts and experiences that life has to offer. All right. Overall theme of this reading for Gemini, take time to breathe out. With bring love into the situation. And then you are very close to achieving your goal. I feel like there is a need to take some time to breathe out, to release yourself from your stress a little bit, because I feel like there's so much negativity associated with this period that you're in right now. And when we're in really negative energy, when we dwell on that negative energy, it becomes even harder to find solutions and see things through the lens of like expecting good outcomes, because we're so heavy and so deep in the negativity. And then you have bring love into the situation. One of the things that I'm learning to do in my own life is to treat the situations in my life like I would a client of mine, or like if I'm talking to you guys in a reading, because obviously it's always easier when it's not your life, right? When you're not the one in the thick of the situation, it's always easier to see things clearly. Which is why I think like tarot and coaching, like things like that can be good, because it provides that outside perspective when we're in the thick of it. But I do feel like with this bring love into the situation, it's almost like treating yourself like you would your best friend or someone that you care about deeply. Like if you saw someone struggling the way that you are, or so disconnected with themselves in the way that they are, or that you feel right now, or like disconnected with their happiness or their fulfillment, like what would you do? What would you tell them to do? What advice would you give somebody who you love so deeply? And I feel like that's kind of the perspective that you're being asked to take right now, because, when we love someone deeply, it's like we see how worthy and deserving they are and how capable they are and how much they bring to the table, right? But when it's yourself, a lot of that energy is really blocked by insecurity and fear and self-doubt. But the more that we can try to speak to ourselves and make decisions from a place of like knowing our worth and knowing our value and things of that nature, the more that we start to find clarity in our path. So, all right, let's dive into this deeper. Recent past for Gemini. So yeah, the journey to awakening. So you're in the middle of awakening to truth. So awakening to things that maybe you've been avoiding, realizations you've been avoiding, things of that nature here. So there's been this energy of waiting for things to change. You've been in an energy of waiting for things to change, knowing things need to change, but waiting for them to change. And I feel like there's a lot of discontent in this energy, a lot of unhappiness, maybe even some mistreatment, some being undervalued, things of that nature. But boy, do you feel trapped. And I feel like you felt trapped in this energy for a really long time. It's like you're unhappy, you know that this isn't what you want, but feeling almost as if like you have no other choice. That right there is survival. And that's what most of us are wired for, is survival. So this isn't to say like you've been doing anything wrong or that you should have known better. Okay, none of that. I feel like this is really just about understanding that we as humans are really freaking, we're capable of putting up with a lot. But our capacity to put up with a lot and to handle a lot of negativity and situations that hold us back or bring us down, like that doesn't mean that that's our obligation. But sometimes we get so used to survival and so used to doing the things that we feel we're supposed to do just to get by, that it becomes like almost our second nature. Our second nature is to survive. It's like, well, I can do it. I've been in this job or this relationship for long enough. Like, I know I can do it. And if I just keep doing it, maybe things will get better. But then that maybe things will get better eventually gets harder to believe in, because you've been so unhappy for so long that it's like, okay, maybe this is just how things are always going to be. And then we start to settle. We settle in that energy of this is just how things are always going to be. But it doesn't always have to be that way. And that, I feel like, is the truth that Spirit is trying to bring forth in this reading. So let's dive into this more in your current energy, healing with nature, and connection. The Judgment. No longer able to avoid some sort of a truth. No longer able to avoid something that you've been running from and hiding from. It's like it's here, you got to face it. And I think that maybe certain things have happened that have led you to this. It's like you've kind of been pushing these things to decide, no, it's fine, I can just stay, I can just do this, whatever. And it's almost like you're not able to do that anymore. I feel like this has been a really difficult and painful experience, especially if it's something that you've poured a lot of yourself into and like it just did not evolve into what you expected it to. But I feel like Spirit wants you to know that this is a good thing. Because in this energy that you're in, yes, illusions are kind of, shattering and you're not able to kind of avoid the truth of certain situations. A relationship isn't working, or a job just is not meant for you, or isn't working anymore, or something like some sort of change or something that you've been avoiding. We avoid the truth that something needs to change because we're so scared of change. But change doesn't always equal bad. Change to our ego is bad because our ego wants control and predictability and to know exactly how things are going to be. And our ego craves a familiar hell over an unfamiliar heaven. But the more that we lean into the truth that like, this is what it is, this is the reality of a situation, we make decisions from that place, the more we align. And the more we align, the more we receive. And so this isn't a bad thing. This is realignment and aligning further with what is, like I said, like meant for you, what you're here to do. Maybe even, again, discovering your purpose through this energy. It's hard and it's scary and it's overwhelming because there's so much out of your control. But again, that doesn't mean that that's a bad thing. It feels like a bad thing, but it doesn't mean it's a bad thing. So I feel like there's a need to try your hardest to shift your perspective from, oh my gosh, everything's falling apart, to, oh my gosh, everything's falling into place. Because that, to me, is what this is really showing. What does Gemini need to know moving forward? Because that's the truth. It's like when we're willing to let things that don't align with us fall apart or fall away, then that means that we're showing a willingness to let the right things fall into place. But in that in between, where we face the fear of like, well, what if nothing better comes along, or what if I don't have the money, or what if this, which are completely natural and normal, right? Thoughts. But when we expect the worst, we stay in places where we are settling and accepting less because we think we have to. But when we expect and try to come from this place of believing that we are guided and supported and deserving of good things, then we make decisions from that place. And since our reality is a reflection of our beliefs, and our beliefs we reflect with our actions what we believe, that creates our reality. So if we sit in the energy of settling because we think we have to, we're always going to settle because we're always going to think we have to. And then we're going to wonder why the universe hasn't provided us with what we really deserve, even though we've been accepting less. And it's almost like this is the universe's way of pushing you into realizing that you can no longer accept less and settle for less anymore. It's like it won't work. Like your soul is refusing. What does Gemini need to know moving forward? 9 of Cups, Magician, Sun, Wheel of Fortune. Oh my gosh. I mean, this right here is like miracle type energy. It's like manifesting these really positive changes that bring a lot of happiness and joy and fulfillment. The 9 of Cups is all about, heart-centered wish fulfillment. So to me, this is about like when you're willing to face the unknown, and when you're willing to stop accepting less and to, walk away from the thing that isn't serving you, or to, finally start to look for other options and other solutions, we are basically to the universe saying, I'm ready for more. I am recognizing that I'm deserving of more, and I'm ready for more. And the universe always responds to our energy. The universe is not biased. It's going to respond exactly to what you put out. So if you're putting out this energy of I have to settle because if I don't settle, I'm going to not have what I need, the universe is going to respond to that exact energy, and it's going to provide you with proof of that belief. But if we show up with the belief of I am worthy and deserving and capable and the universe has my back, which might not always feel, we might not always feel that way. But if we can show up in that energy, even if we don't fully feel that way, we then start to experience proof that those things are true, and it becomes easier to feel that way. So, I don't know, this is pretty cool though. This is what I feel like you have to look forward to if you're willing to step outside of your comfort zone and make certain changes that maybe you've been avoiding making for a really long time. And I also feel like this is you needing to know that you are supported and guided, and the universe has your back here, and you're going to get what it is that you need every single step of the way, even if you're unsure how or what that even looks like at this time. And that's what faith is, right? It's about trusting that we're going to be supported and guided, even if we're not really sure what that looks like or how things are going to turn out at the end. But this energy is really cool. It's really exciting. I feel like you have so much to look forward to, and I feel like one of the things that I have really learned is that the more that we can face our life through the lens of the deepest truth that we're capable of accessing at that moment and making decisions from that place of truth, the more that we can create an aligned life, that we create experiences that align with abundance and love and divine support. But when we avoid the truth through, like in the name of survival, we typically then attract unaligned experiences and a lot of lack and a lot of struggle and a lot of anxiety. But it's backwards, right? Because you kind of have to face that fear and that anxiety to get to that peace and that freedom and that fulfillment. But when we avoid a fear and we live in the fear of some sort of, negative outcome, therefore choosing survival, we typically actually create that negative outcome, or we ultimately create lack and struggle. So this is pretty, none of this is easy. And I think that I definitely want to make it very clear that I don't think that any of this is easy. But I do feel like Spirit is trying to bring you into this energy of, taking steps forward despite the fear and the anxiety of like what could go wrong. Because the best way to look at it is, well, what could go right? What could you gain? Not what am I losing, but what are you gaining? What are the possibilities in the good way? All right, Gemini. I'm going to hop on over to the extended. We're going to dive deeper into this, looking at what you need to do right now in order to move forward in alignment with your higher self. So we're going to dive deeper into the messages and then provide that tangible advice. And I have an advice card to pull from your spiritual team at the very end. Thank you so much, Gemini, as always, for your support of my channel. I do obviously hope that this reading helped and resonated with you in a way that you were needing today. And as always, I wish you nothing but love and healing and all of the wonderful things that you deserve and desire on your journey moving forward. All right, bye, Gemini.